Today we're going to discuss how to find the right New York City neighborhood if you're considering moving here. Watch till the end, we've got a lot of great tips that can help you out. What's up everyone, it's John, and I was originally going to title this video, How to Find the Perfect New York City Neighborhood, and I realized that there really is no perfect neighborhood. Every area has its pros and cons, but picking the right neighborhood for you is such an important decision that can really make or break your experience here. So we're going to get started with money because, well, you've got to be able to afford that neighborhood you're interested in. I've got good news and bad news for you if you're watching this video in January of 2021. And since I try to be an optimist, we're going to start with the good news. And the rental prices in New York City are at levels not seen in the last 10 years. They are that low. And ignoring all the issues with the pandemic, if you're planning on moving here in the near term, you could get one heck of a deal. To illustrate this, my old apartment in Greenwich Village, which I paid $27.50 for up until October of 2020, just rented at $17.50 a month, $1,000 cheaper than I was paying, $250 cheaper than I originally rented it at 9 years ago. And to think, the landlords offered it to me at $27.50 again for this coming year. But I digress. The bad news is I don't know how long these cheap prices are going to last. Now, New York City in general is a very expensive place to live, particularly in the neighborhoods that many newcomers are drawn to. If you'd like to go out to eat a lot in the East Village, it's going to add up after a while. Now back to money, you need to find out if you can afford the neighborhood of your choice. And rather than just Googling what is the average rent in Soho, what you need to do is go to StreetEasy.com and select by neighborhood. Set a price range and poke around. For example, this lovely shoebox apartment can be yours for just $1,600 a month, and it comes with a great view of another building's wall. I mean, can you really put a price on something like that? The point here is many people would actually be shocked at what you can get for your money right now in 2021, but if you're watching this video in a few years, prices could change, so I always recommend starting on StreetEasy.com to seeing what the exact market is looking like right now. I've got two extra tips here. One is just because the neighborhood that you're interested in is really expensive doesn't mean you can't afford to live there if you get a roommate. Roommates are very common in New York City. Heck, I lived with my twin brother for 7 years in a 350 square foot apartment because that was the only way we were going to be able to afford Greenwich Village. The second tip is to live in your preferred neighborhood by living right next to it. And let me give you a prime example. In my current neighborhood of Park Slope, Brooklyn, a one-bedroom apartment is renting for about $2,300 to $2,500 a month. But if you cross 4th Avenue, one street over into Gowanus, rent prices will drop by about $500 or so a month. And the only real difference over there is the name of the neighborhood. In the past, you would see the same thing living in Greenwich Village versus living in Soho, just one block south past Houston Street. The rent prices would go up about $300 to $400 a month. So the big tip here is if you have a neighborhood that you're dead set on, living just 1 or 2 blocks away from the neighborhood boundaries could save you a substantial amount of money, and you'll still be spending most of your time in that neighborhood anyway. Check out the Compass Guide to New York City Neighborhoods. Now, you can't underestimate the value of actually visiting areas of New York City by yourself. But if you need a good place to start, if you know absolutely nothing about New York City neighborhoods, this online guide is really good. I think Compass.com put together a fantastic list of 64 popular New York City neighborhoods. It shows you key attributes, the location on a map, what subways are nearby, commuting times, and even a ton of photos. I'm putting that link in the description if you're curious. I even learned a lot just by poking through this website. Next up, what's your reason for moving here? Now, for many newcomers to New York City, it is school, and if you're moving here for college, I do recommend living very close to wherever that school is, because you don't only want to be close to there for class, but you also want to be nearby for social purposes, for clubs. So for example, if you're going to Columbia for grad school, you probably want to live in Morningside Heights. Now, a job is a little bit different. Let's say you're moving to New York for a job in Midtown Manhattan. You need to determine how close you want to be to the office, and for many people, that's a tough decision. 20 to 30 minutes would be my maximum commute time. Then again, with current pandemic pricing, you can afford to live in many neighborhoods in Manhattan that you probably always thought were actually out of reach. Now, if you're like I was when I first moved to New York, working an online job, you can be a bit more selfish with your preferences. And for me, I was in my 20s. I wanted to live in an area with a lot of nightlife, a lot of things going on, and that was very central to everything in Manhattan, and Greenwich Village checked all of those boxes, and that's why I lived there for so many years. Now, if you're coming here with a family, you might be more drawn to laid-back neighborhoods like the Upper West Side or Carroll Gardens in Brooklyn. If you want me to make a video in the future about what I think are the best neighborhoods for people who are new to New York City, tell me down below in the comments and I'll consider creating something. And also, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to smash that like button so YouTube knows you're watching. Space. This is one of those things that surprises people so much about moving to New York City, and it's probably one of the main reasons just about every apartment tour I've ever done has 100,000 or more views. And if you're not oozing money from early Bitcoin investing, getting a big space in Lower Manhattan is likely going to be out of your price range. If you want more space, coming in knowing that Brooklyn and Queens are going to provide that is going to save you a lot of time in narrowing down your neighborhood decisions. But if location is a bigger factor to you than the size of your apartment, then Lower Manhattan could make sense, especially with the massive price drops of late. Now, you can find blogs online talking about individual neighborhoods, the pros and the cons, but just remember that's one writer's opinion. There's nothing better than going with your gut, walking around a neighborhood and just getting a feel for it. And for example, my current apartment here in Park Slope, Brooklyn, I walked around Park Slope and I immediately felt at home here. I felt like this was a place I could really enjoy. And similarly, when I moved to Greenwich Village in my first apartment, I knew that area very well from coming there all the time to hang out when I grew up in Jersey. I want to take a moment right now to let you guys in on a cool offer we have for the month of January. If you join our Patreon, I'm going to be sending you one of Adriana's New York City digital calendars absolutely for free. You can put this on the lock screen of your computer. You can put it as your desktop background. I'm using mine as we speak. It's very cool. And on our Patreon, we give you a lot of bonus content, bonus videos, early access to vlogs, and more. Check it out. Link down below in the description. Talk to your friends. Yes, this requires you to actually have friends in New York City, but if your friends have similar interests to you, I'm assuming that's why you're friends with them, their opinions about their neighborhood or neighborhoods that they know of can be invaluable. Or worst case, ask your friends of friends what their opinions are of New York City neighborhoods. This kind of intel is very important, and it's always nice to get multiple opinions about different areas of the city to live in. Subway connections. Now, this isn't a problem in most of Manhattan, where you're generally at worst a 15 or 20 minute walk to a subway station, but there's some areas in Brooklyn and Queens that have a lot of space, and you're going to be impressed by the size of these apartments, but they're absolutely poorly connected by subway. And if you're just moving to New York City, I think having good access to all of the city is something that's very important. So do be careful about that. Do make sure on the map, looking at your neighborhood of choice, that it does have decent connections to public transportation. Guys, now it's your turn. Tell me down below in the comments, if you lived in New York City or you live here now, how did you pick your neighborhood, and was it a good decision? Why or why not? Make sure to check out my Moving to New York City playlist or our neighborhood guide playlist if you need some ideas of places to live in New York City. We've covered so much, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, until next time.